Right, okay, Lester, I think we should be live and kicking. Welcome to Raptor Aid Q&A. Finally, we've managed to get you on after well, you were supposed to be one of the very first ones we did, and technology kept beating us. But anyway, hopefully this is going to work. How are we? We're in your workshop, aren't we? You're right.
Yeah, this is actually the third attempt, isn't it? But I've now got high-speed internet, which I think makes the difference.
Well, I think it's as much my inabilities as it is your internet inabilities. But anyway, good. Well, we're working so far, so let's carry on. So I always start the same way, as you've probably seen on some of the other ones. Anyone tuning in, ignore the bottom camera so Lester can show us around the workshop in a minute. So don't worry, there's not supposed to be two Lester Hartmanns on your screen. But we're going to talk about. Just tell us a bit about you. I always get it wrong. Do you call yourself a joiner or a carpenter? What's the correct title for your profession?
I've always called myself a designer in wood, in actual fact.
Okay.
It's the design side that interests me the most, and the making of it is just, the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And I have done a lot of very unusual stuff. It was all bespoke, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes to show for the nest boxes, which we'll come on to in a bit. But I know you've done all the. Well, I've seen pictures in the workshop of music sound studios or worktops for that, and that incredible staircase that I'm really jealous of. Which, So I know you've done. I know you've done all sorts of stuff. Okay, so you're a designer of wood. How long have you been doing it for? This isn't just a hobby, is it? Go on.
No, I've actually got a degree in horticulture, but after about 5 years of growing early strawberries, I moved into the building trade. I had apprenticed as a child to every trade from the age of 19 to about 16. This was, 9 to 16. And I very quickly got into the joinery side of stuff. And then I started employing people, and I was incredibly fortunate that I took on a couple of lads who, one was the best joiner I've ever come across, and he had a fantastic reputation. And I actually apprenticed to him, even though I was his boss. And he was a real perfectionist. And in 7 or 8 years of working with me, he only ever made one tiny little mistake. He cut a piece of wood 100 mil long, which is quite incredible. But I got into restoration of properties mainly. A lot of timber frame buildings. This was down in Herefordshire and Worcestershire. And then in 2001, I did a curved kitchen in an oast house for a film producer, and then I got into doing television work, which was a very, very interesting 7 or 8 years of my life. Bit frustrating at times, but the opportunities it gave were immense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can imagine. Yeah. Well, I think anyone who has my involvement with the odd TV thing with the Birds of Prey was, it's always frustrating. TV is, but it's some of the stuff you get to do is brilliant. Brilliant. So you've got bags, years and years of experience and knowledge and know on it, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, to me, obviously, we came to know each other. I class you as a good friend now, and we've come to know each other through mutual friends, wasn't it? You're based in Hathersage.
We moved up here 6.5 years ago now, and my wife, Lyndon, used to be a journalist locally, and I'd been a very serious climber for many years, and we both decided that this was where we wanted to retire to. But then I'm dreadful at saying no to people, and I had so many customers that when I was down in Malvern, all I was ever doing was working. So we decided to move up here early. So we moved up, and I was very fortunate to find this workshop in a very historic old mill. And then things took a course which I would never have seen happen, actually. When I come up, I was keen on getting into some conservation project. But we came up and we were renting up here, and we were finishing off a project down in Malvern. So I was up and down, up and down. But in that time, by chance, we met a couple, and John Ellicock, he'd been heavily involved with the Hawke Conservancy Trust. He'd retired quite young and basically does charity work. And he asked me if I'd build a barn owl box. And I said yes. And then it was, oh, do you fancy a little project? And he wanted to put barn owl and kestrel boxes up because for barn owls, the Hope Valley where we are, it's right on the limit. And if you get a cold, wet winter, you know, so many of the barn owls die. And they're just there aren't the roosting sites for them. So I think we built 9 barn owl and kestrel boxes that year. And then he said, oh, what about a little Swift project? And I think we built about 50 Swift boxes. And then the following year, I think we put up 30 barn owl and kestrel boxes. And then when it came to the Swifts, yeah, I suddenly realised I was spending about 3 months of the year actually doing bird boxes. Yeah. And then John says to me, oh, yeah, you should think about making a little business of this. And I kept on saying no. And I thought it might be a bit boring, to be truthful with you, just making boxes. And also it meant quite a sizable investment in a computerized machine for cutting the bits out, because it would drive you mad if you had to do it by hand. Yeah. So anyway, with the last box we put up one winter was a kestrel box, and the weather was horrendous, and we really shouldn't have put it up, but it was blowing about 50 mile an hour gale and frozen rain. Well, anyway, I got a phone call from a ringer in the valley who's now a very good friend, Alan Kidd. And he said, oh, I'm going up to that kestrel box and it's got young in. Do you want to come up? We're ringing them. So I went up, and it was, you know, great to see. It's the first time I've seen it that, you know, close at hand. And the following day, he was going up to a barn owl box with barn owl chicks. And I can clearly remember going up and looking at these chicks and things and thinking, I'm getting so much more satisfaction out of doing this than doing some flash kitchen for somebody in London who only wants it for show, you know. And I think there and then I decided, right, I'm going to, you know, make a business of this. But then it was only really about a year ago that I thought, you know, that was only 2 years ago. But early last year, I thought, yeah, I would just want to do this full time because I was enjoying it so much.
Yeah. and so Pete Boxes was born, and obviously the way I got to know you is you were an answer to a question that I've been asking for, searching for a long time. So I met you through John as well, through a mutual friend, through the Hawke Conservancy Trust. John was very kindly helping us, Raptor Aid, with our charity bits and pieces. And yeah, obviously I was desperately trying to find someone who could realise a dream, or a bit, I suppose it was a dream really, of flat pack nest boxes that kids could slot together. So that's obviously something we're working on, and you've done some wonderful prototypes, and some that work, that I've got up. So yeah, that was the start of it for me and Pete Boxes. So it was and it's a passion, and it's great it's great that you found it, really. What I had to laugh at when you were talking then, Lester, was how you used the word little when you said Swift, because I know that it definitely isn't a little project anymore. It's not not just like the business, because it's been so successful in many ways.
This year we've tripled the number of boxes that we did last year, and last year we actually had a big Swift project locally, and we put up 350 boxes. This year we put up about 160. We've got about another 40 to go, but because of coronavirus we couldn't get those up. But even taking into account those 350 boxes, we've still basically tripled this year what we did last year. So it's really good. But the part-time hobby business is not part-time anymore. At the moment, it's 7 days a week, but this is our busiest time of the year.
Yeah, but you're still smiling, and of course, you say we because it's a family thing as well, isn't it? So obviously, Lyndon, your wife, that is involved, and you know the girls get involved as well, and partners of the girls. So it's exciting times, and we can't not talk about your success at Bird Fair as well. I shared a picture, obviously, of me stood with you and Lyndon on the stand. So Bird Fair was last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, when we set up the business, one thing John was adamant that we had to have a really good website, and fortunately he knew somebody who was very good, and we used Anna Clark from Blunt Crayon, and she produced a fantastic website. And then about February time, loads of people were saying you really should go to Bird Fair. So Lyndon got in contact with them, and they responded saying, thanks for the inquiry, but there's a waiting list. We'll let you know in the future if there's ever anything come up. About half hour later, we got I think it was an email saying, a stand's just come up if you want it. So we found out later that there's actually a 10-year waiting list to go to Bird Fair. But anyway, I've built a number of stands and things in the past, and being in TV, props and stuff. So I decided to go to town a little bit on it, not too much, but a bit. And then you very kindly said you'd come along, and also my youngest daughter came along. So we had a stand, and one of the things I was very keen on doing was actually having younger people there. We old cronies, it's you can't have the effect that younger people have, I think. So anyway, on the second day, I actually saw the woman who runs Bird Fair walking along with a bag full of picture frames, and I actually thought to myself, I think we might have got a placing. And anyway, she came up in the stand, and we got best in show. Sorry, we got best commercial stand on the Saturday, which we were absolutely delighted with. And then on the Sunday, I actually saw coming along with a press photographer and the chap who is overall in charge of Bird Fair, and there was only one picture frame, and I was pretty certain that we got best in show there, and it felt a little bit like getting a gold medal at Chelsea. It was absolutely fantastic. And when I talked to them afterwards and said, why did you offer us the stand? And she said, well, we had one look at your website, and we like your product, and we thought we had to have you. So getting a really good website was very, very important.
Yeah.
And when I asked why we'd got best in show, and she came out with, well, we really like your product, we liked your ethos, and we liked the enthusiasm. And a lot of the enthusiasm was, Lyndon's very outgoing, and Rosie, my daughter, was really good, and yourself, and it was just a group of people who were really enjoying talking to the public. So it was a fantastic experience. And just in the last month, I must have had 40 or 50 phone calls from people saying, oh, I saw you at Bird Fair. And we want boxes. And I'm sure a lot of the boxes we've sold through the websites have also been, people seeing us at Bird Fair. So it was absolutely fantastic thing for us as a business.
Yeah, well, and I know you'll never say this, but I think also the boxes themselves spoke. The stand looked spectacular. I had nothing to do with the creation of the stand. Obviously, that's all your hard work. The stand looked absolutely wonderful. And the products, I think the products speak for themselves, really. There's nest boxes out there, but for me, I'm blowing your trumpet for you, Lester. Peak boxes are by far some of the best out on the market. But I just wanted to ask you then, before we look at the boxes themselves, you mentioned about the ethos of the boxes, which is something that I really love about Peak Boxes and working with you. So the fact that the timber, for instance, and it's interesting, this links to another chat I had on these Facebook Lives with James Aldred, the wildlife cameraman, and we got talking. I can't remember whether it was in our video or it was afterwards, and we were talking about FSC timber. Now I probably should be careful what I say here, but basically James said no, it's a lot of it is this timber, this ply that is being shipped all around the world is not FSC at all. It's absolute it's a lot of it's rubbish, and it's just like a wolf in sheep's clothing sort of thing. So that that's where your work with DuraPly, which you can talk about in a second, is wonderful. But just explain the whole ethos behind the materials and the way you go about making the boxes, and even down to the delivery of them.
Well, first of all, in the past, when in my joinery and furniture making days, I've always tried to do the best I'm capable of doing. And I always want to test materials to destruction, because what I don't want to do is produce something that, 2 or 3 years down the line isn't any good. My experience of Far Eastern ply, probably 10 years ago, by then I'd stopped using it. Certainly Malaysian ply, although it's FSC, a lot of the timber is coming from deforestation, illegal deforestation as well. But more important to me even than that was the death rate of people working in the factories is absolutely horrendous. And it's because they're using formaldehyde glues, which are carcinogenic, with no protection. And when I found this out, I actually stopped using it. And when I started the concept of the boxes, I really wanted to do my research and find, a supplier who could supply something that I was happy with. I thought of doing solid timber, but to be truthful with you, to do a really good product, the cost is horrendous. And it's not really possible to do it with a computerized machine.
Yeah.
And I found this company, Durapply. There's only one company in Britain that imports it, but unfortunately I deal with them. And it's Plantation Poplar from Spain. They use water-based glues in it. So they're completely safe, and they're safe to the environment as well. Once they've laminated it up, they actually put it into a vacuum and take out nearly all the moisture. And if you get wood below 5% moisture content, the cell structure breaks down slightly, and then the cells can't reabsorb moisture. So it means that in wet conditions, the only place the water can go is between the cells, which means there's very little swelling. Although I don't hand it on, they actually give a 15-year guarantee against delamination.
Yeah.
It would be a nightmare to pass that on, because if there were problems, trying to prove people had put the boxes up right, etc., it'd be a problem.
Yeah.
But how I've always tested ply, to any exterior sort of ply, is an old way that the Timber Research and Development Association used to do it. They're very sophisticated now. But basically, you soak a piece of ply in boiling hot water for 5 minutes. Then you take it out, put it into a freezer, leave it in the freezer for a day, take it out, back into boiling water, back into the freezer, and keep doing this. And the best marine ply I've ever used delaminated by the 5th time of doing that. Well, I used Durapply. I tried a bit of Durapply, and they're actually looking at creating a grade of ply above marine ply, because Durapply, and there's actually a firm in Austria doing the same grade of ply. So anyway, I did it with Durapply, and this was a couple of years ago, and it was in and out of the freezer. It probably goes in now maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. I'd take it out and do it. It looks brand new still, no delamination. So I'm happy that the product will last as well as any wood product. And in actual fact, an interesting little sideline to that is that I've always used a lot of my sawdust, wood shavings, as compost. So in our compost bins down at the allotment, I'll have a third sawdust, a third manure, and a third green waste. The compost bins, I can normally get the whole lot composted in 2 months. I've had Durapply in for about 8 months now, and it hasn't composted at all, which is a bit annoying for that, but it does prove to me that it's a great product.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I start looking at. I also started looking at what do we, roofing material, and I've tried to keep away from any plastics, any oil-based stuff. and I found a heat reflective aluminium roofing paint, which is a water-based one, which is about as environmentally friendly as you can get.
Yeah.
But it actually reduces the heat transfer through the roof by about 30%. And it's a lot better than having something like felt on, because felt will break down very quickly. So we tried to be as ecologically friendly as possible. All our packaging is cardboard. It's paper glue tape. We don't use plastic tapes. We've got a garage next to us. A lot of the packing material inside are second-hand boxes, cardboard boxes and things. So we tried as much as possible to keep our carbon footprint as low as possible.
Yeah. No, well, yeah. I mean, I'd never come across DuraPly before, but I've obviously spent a good few years now going around nest boxes, and 2 years later delamination, and we need to replace the roofs on this, the roofs on that, and obviously it's still early days yet for peak boxes, but I know you've got what was the oldest box you've got up at the moment? Is
we've got boxes 2 years old in our project, our Barnow and Kestrel project, and some of them are in really, really exposed situations. Yeah, and there has been no change in the ply at all, except for one box where a squirrel's eaten a little bit. But that's the only thing we found. And because I tongue and groove everything, and the doors are quite tightly slotted together, I know that there's very little swelling, and it's the swelling that causes delamination, because they still open dead easy. So
and even down to like delivery, isn't it? DPD or whoever.
Yeah, we use DPD local, because they're the DPD are the only company in the world, at least they say, which are carbon neutral for delivery. I don't know how they do it, but that's what they state. So
I mean, and it's the same with the aluminium paint. I'd never seen that before. Some people don't put anything on. Sometimes if you've got a spare bit of felt knocking around the yard, I'd put that on. I mean, there's arguments, I've heard people say about, felt warming up, and owlets or whatever with a talon sitting on top of it, getting, tar on the talon. So there's various things.
Felt will warm up quite dramatically. And which is two problems. Obviously, the box will heat up as well because of that, but also because it heats up, cools down, heats up, cools down, it cracks very quickly, especially in a box type situation.
And the other thing I should point out as well, which we can't demonstrate at all in this, is with DuraPly. The other thing that I was amazed at was the weight of it. So when you've built a Barnow box, and again, I put big A-frame Barnow boxes up, and you shouldn't do this, but put them up on my own, because I've been on my own. Had to fight one up a ladder and get it fitted to a tree. They're heavy, but the DuraPly ones, they're amazing. How light they are. Well, it's incredible.
DuraPly, it's because they extract all the water, and also poplar is quite a light weight of wood. It's actually about a third lighter than exterior ply, which is you shouldn't really use without fully painted. And it's basically half the weight of marine ply, and it does make a huge difference for putting them up. Our biggest Barnow box weighs 9 kilos. And with the mounting system we've got, one person can put it up quite easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, right. Well, while we've we're half an hour in, let's have a look around the workshop then, shall we? We've talked about these boxes, so Lester's going to pick his phone up and disappear from one screen, and
Yeah.
Right, we can hear you. You've muted both of them, just so you know. There we go. Your phone, Mike.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. Brilliant.
Right.
So this is where
this is the work. Well, this is part of the workshop. You can see this is the sort of work I used to do. Staircase. You know, loads of curved work. That was the kitchen. But now it's the barn owl boxes.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the moment a lot of our work is in Swift boxes. So in this room, you can see that here's a load of boxes ready for well, some have got paint on, some haven't.
Yeah. So just talk a bit about this. I know we're on Raptor Aid, but I know we may have some people tuning in that are interested in the Swift boxes, Lester. So just talk a bit about the Swift boxes, because I know you've done one thing you obviously pride yourself on is you do a huge amount of research. You know, you ask me loads of questions, which is great, about what I think works for birds of prey. But Swift wise, you do all sorts of things with that as well. And you
yeah, I'm trying to turn the sound off. One moment, I'm just getting the sound off on the computer.
No worries.
That's better. No, it's still coming through. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, when I decided to go into the barn owl boxes, is there a problem with the sound, by the way?
No, it's a bit. I mean, it's a bit echoey, but don't worry about it. I think most people will be able to cope with it. Don't worry too much.
There you are. Hopefully that works. Yeah, when I started with the barn owl boxes, with the Swift boxes, I talked to a chap, Nick Brown, who's runs the Swift side of things for the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, and said, who's the best person in the country to talk to?
Yeah.
And he said, Mark Clanfield down in Bristol. So I got in contact with Mark, and my daughter actually lives down in, one of my daughters lives in Bristol, so it was quite useful. But I went and saw him, and he's the nicest person you'll ever come across. And he basically just gave me all his research that he'd done over the best part of 15 years on bird box design. And it was just fantastic. So I came back and produced a load of boxes and then took them back down. And since then, we've been working together, you know, for 2 years now on perfecting things and developing up ideas. When it came to the barn owl boxes and kestrel boxes and tawny owl boxes, John recommended Matt Stevens down in at the Hawk Conservancy Trust. So I went and saw him, and there was a chap, Nigel Lewis, there who'd done huge amounts of work for barn owls, and I think the MBE for his work. And he and Matt had spent years and years developing up box designs, and they gave us permission to use their box designs. So we did that, and then I got to know yourself, and we developed up bits on little owl boxes and tawny owl boxes, and obviously the slot together boxes. So I've tried to work with the people I think are some of the best around, people that I can work with. Mark Glanville and I think very similar on design, and it doesn't matter if you're designing a house for a person or a house for a bird or a staircase, whatever. Design is design. So it's just trying to get a product that works best, lasts a long time, etc., etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely, because we've had many a discussion about barn owl boxes, and I've even had and especially barn owl boxes because they're one of the species that a lot of conservation work's being done on, and obviously this design that we're looking at here is like a box as such. A lot of people associate with barn owls the typical A-frame sort of style of box, and the hardest thing I find getting across to people is a lot of the time that a box is a box. There's certain parameters you have to fulfill that really work for the birds, and obviously that's where Mark's come into it, helping you with Swift. Hopefully that's where myself, Matt, and Major Nigel Lewis have helped with. But a lot of people get quite hung up on, well, this is the best design, and really a box is a box at the end of the day, but it's the other things that go into it which make it really count and work. So it doesn't matter that it's not a triangle shape, this box here. There's a lot of other things that have gone into it. So just there's obviously 2 barn owl boxes there, Lester. Do you mind going a bit closer, and then we can show people?
Well, with the barn owl boxes, when I started looking at them, one thing I felt was, as a designer, the traditional triangular style box has a design fault in that as the young get bigger, the space actually gets smaller for them. The litter builds up. And in actual fact, the ideal would actually be for it to work the other way. When I came across the design we're using, I was much more happy with it, because it just doesn't get smaller for the birds.
By that you're on about obviously being at the bottom of a triangle. As the pellets build up, the bird is the floor essentially is rising to the narrowest part of the box. I know what you mean.
And obviously the birds are getting bigger at the same time. So and we put up a lot of these boxes, and they seem to be quite successful. And I know Matt Stevens, I think they put up something like 3,000 with a huge, really good success rate. So
So just looking at these, but obviously they've got the aluminium paint on the top. They've got an overlap on the roof as well. The 2 designs here, one that's the entrance hole, and one of the big hanging points for a lot of people is, how high does it be? And I think like people say, oh well, the minimum should be 450 millimeters. But essentially, as long as the hole isn't on the floor of the box so that the chicks can just wander out, they've got to actually be of a certain age to be able to jump up and exit. And then what I like about these boxes as well is that they've got a ledge on the front for adults, but also chicks, so they don't have to just leave a box. They can jump out onto a ledge and wing flap and take it before they fledge. Before they go, and it gives them something to aim for if they're coming back as a youngster, as they're practicing. So
well, we got 2 different designs really here. This one here with just the one hole. I don't know whether you probably can't see inside, but I'll go down the back. We use toggles to hold the doors in place. But I don't know whether you can just see in there. There's a baffle here, so a bird coming in has to drop down and around the baffle. That actually helps stop jackdaws quite a bit. So that's one design. The other design is this one, and this has a separate compartment in the bottom. It's not very big, and it's got a. You can see here this goes round, and then there's another entrance which drops down into the main chamber. The advantage with this one is the male will actually roost in the bottom if the weather's bad. The female won't let the male in because they might predate the young.
Yeah.
The male will go in there. Also, if a young comes out too early and falls out, they've been known to go into the bottom, and then the parents will actually feed them in the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I spoke to Matt about this as well, because I know I've had well, you'll remember at Bird Fair I had an interesting conversation with an organisation that I won't name names, but they commented on that, and the idea, it is very narrow, so there's little to no chance of really anything managing to make a nest in there, certainly not a barn. And I spoke to Matt about it, and he said really the main feature of that the lower hole, is if a chick fledges and can't get back into the box, he's got he's got somewhere safe to go out the way. And Matt said it does work. So that's it works perfect. Have you got well, we can look at it on another box actually.
This box, in actual fact, is a new design for us. We put one up at Casting to Water for Severn Trent. It's to go on a pole. And one of the big problems for a lot of people, obviously, they haven't got a suitable tree. But I haven't actually made it yet, but within the next week I'll have it made, is a pole which is freestanding. So you don't have all the costs of drilling holes in the ground and concreting the posts in or anything. This will literally be freestanding, and the box can sit on top. And that's actually come out of this, which is going to be a Swift tower, and this is the start of it. Again, we want to do it that you're not paying a fortune out. And if you wanted to move it at some stage, you could. No, I like. Well, of course, in the county where I'm based, one of the barn owl groups uses poles specifically. So they started using telegraph poles that were supplied by utility companies, and they've stuck with it. So I do like that with the ledge all the way around. Someone's actually just asked about the ledge. Does the outside ledge have water drainage? And it does. It's got grooves, at the top, hasn't it? Yeah, if you look, you can see grooves all the way around. And there's drainage internally as well. Brilliant, excellent. So that's the barn owl box. As I say, it's not your typical one. We have discussed, haven't we, about designing a sort of what people might recognise as a barn owl box, because I know there are. I've talked to you, haven't I? There's some people I know that won't really use anything else. You can't change them for love nor money. So I think this year I might design another box, and we'll test it out then and see how it goes. Yeah, absolutely. But they work brilliantly. I love them. So let's have a look at. Have you got a tawny owl box there? Did you say, Lester? Yeah, this is one. If you look, it actually says Raptor Aid on. Very good. Because you obviously sell some of my boxes. Well, I only sell your boxes. Yeah, they're brilliant. I use them. So, and this has an entrance on the side. to get in, so that this was something, I know a small amount about Raptors, particularly in comparison to people like Matt and yourself, and I didn't know there was a real problem with if you have a door on the front of a tawny owl actually attacking you. So when the first design I made, when I took it down to Matt, he said, no, you can't have the door on the front. And you said the same. So we moved the door around to the side.
Yeah.
And also these are a bit shorter than normal boxes and wider and deeper. And that was, again, through talking to yourself and Matt. So you can probably explain that better than I.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a case of I'm looking. I enjoy monitoring tawny owls, and we've just put 30 of these up in Delamere Forest near us as part of a project, and yeah, I'd always argued if you go on Google and Google a tawny owl box or a nest box design, it's been the same one. So this is what a lot of people will call a chimney style box where the owl drops in. Obviously, tawny owls being a cavity nester, that's what they like, but they will nest on open nests but traditionally it's hollows in trees. You can get the box that's like underslung under a tree, so it's like that turned on its end without right, so they run into it, so to speak. But I prefer this, and I've had a lot of success with this. But what I've always thought, and it was great to work with you on it, was tawny owl boxes that are the designs that are available on the internet are too narrow. When you look at a tawny owl, most people won't have had the opportunity to, and it's fair enough. But the adult bird, they're quite short, stocky birds, but they have a really long tail on them. And I always thought, well, when the female sat on eggs, obviously it's quite cramped conditions, so you wanted to have a bit more space and not damage things like a tail. But then also the chicks, as the chicks are developing, you're then going to have an adult tawny owl and then potentially 2, maybe 3 chicks in there. And even though tawny owls branch at around about 3 weeks old, they're quite big by then. So to have 3 chicks and an adult coming in to try and feed them, it's finding that balance between a box that isn't too big, ridiculously big, and one that sort of compensates them. So that's the idea. And they didn't need to be as deep. I think one of the boxes designs I've seen, chimney, was like nearly 3 foot deep or something like that from top to bottom of the box. It was just it was crazy long, really. So it was just what worked really for the owls, and saves timber and stuff like that, so you're not wasting using more materials you need. But George has just commented, George is the saviour of Wi-Fi, saying that he's actually watching a tawny owl in a tree right now. So
well, thanks George for getting our internet up and running yesterday, or we wouldn't be doing this now.
Oh, good. Well, he's seen one, so that's an omen for you, George. So that was it really. Just while you've got the tawny owl, have you got a fixing plate with it then? Just I thought we'd talk about how you've developed a fixing plate for it.
Yeah. I always try to do things as simple as possible. And when we started the barn owl project, it was taking 2 of us to put up a barn owl box, because with this design you've got to go in from the back, and there's no way you could hold a box and screw it onto a tree. Well, very quickly I thought, this is ridiculous. So what I produced was a little plate to screw to the tree, and then you can hook the box on. And rather than having to have 2 people, 2 ladders, one person could do it easy. So it's easy to show you on this tawny owl box. So if you look, this is the back. Yeah. There's a groove in the roof here. And what I've produced is this is just a little plate with a tongue on the top. Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah.
Which slots in. So it just slots in like that. So now to fix the box, you just fix that plate onto the tree, which is easy. With the bigger boxes, the plates are just a mounting plate, basically a temporary plate. You then drop the box onto it.
Hook it on, yeah.
And the barn owl boxes, I can just stick on my shoulder straight up a ladder, just turn, drop it on, and then you fix through the box and the plates to get permanent fixings.
Yeah.
With the Swift boxes, this is a half apex box that we do, but you can see, these are plates, and that's for an apex box, and the box just drops on, and then you screw into that, and that's it. But it does make fitting much easier.
Yeah. So you just, exactly. So you just go on. Sorry.
As a demonstration of the weight of these boxes, I can just lift this box up, just like that.
One-handed, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially you just fix the plate to the tree on, and then you take the box up and hook the box onto the plate and then fasten the box to the plate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, there's a plate which is on the wall here, which I used to have a box on there.
Yeah.
You literally just, I don't know whether you can see that, but it just hooks on like that.
Yeah.
And then you open up the back and screw through.
Yeah.
It didn't actually quite work, that one, because it was the wrong size plate, but
yeah, that's the gist of it. No, that's absolutely. Yeah, brilliant. And well, it works. I will just say, health and safety wise, if you are putting a box up, do it 2 people. Don't necessarily do it. Don't be like me and Lester. That's my health and safety head coming on, because I get told off if I. Yeah, but really, 2 people do. But you also, and I know I do with our boxes. You send out a full list of sighting information and something we've worked on, a couple of documents on where to put the box and how to fit it and all the what fittings potentially you can use as well. So absolutely right. I know what that box is in front of us, so that's a little owl box.
Yeah, and this is one that I worked with you on the design predominantly, didn't I?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to. I'm definitely not going to take any credit for this, because this is the Bob Shepherd design. So again, if anyone's been on Google looking for little owl designs, this is kind of like the go-to. It's because it's so good. It doesn't need really adjusting. I think the only thing we've adjusted is we've made it.
You said about the shelf on here. I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, the BTO, the Bob Shepherd design. Bob Shepherd, by the way, is an ornithologist and little owl expert. Really, he monitors hundreds of little owl nest boxes, and I think him and his dad came up with this design. But the BTO design that's online, I think, is quite old now. But yeah, so I like to put a ledge on the front of it for the owls to come and go, and. We made it wider, didn't we? We made it a bigger surface area in the floor area. But the crucial thing for little owls is, obviously, as Lester's holding it up, is that tunnel and then the drop down. Because I know a few studies have been done on the species where one of the biggest mortality impacts on chicks is that they can get out the box too early. And succumb to fledging too prematurely. So the idea is they can't get up to where their entrance hole is until they're near enough ready to fly, basically. They really
they really like it pitch black, don't they?
Yeah.
That's why having the tunnel go round, there's almost no light goes in. So.
Yeah, I mean, it acts like a traditional. When I go around my little owl nest sites that I've got in natural sites, in oak trees, in farmland around here in Cheshire where we are, but it's the same in Gloucester with orchards. They'll find a cavity, and then the nest site can actually be. It could be 2-3 meters further in down the tree. They'll disappear off up a branch, and so they're actually quite tricky to monitor in natural sites. But yeah, that's why they like this style of box that Bob's designed, is because they can disappear down the tunnel and then drop into a pitch black cavity, just like they would in a tree, basically. So yeah, it's a good design.
Yeah, something that might interest people is this tower. It's very much a modular setup. So this has got a roof which actually has bats, a section for bats, and then this is one section, the second section, and they all slot together. This is actually just going to be for swifts, but we're going to do one for general birds, but also I'm looking at doing one for barn owls and kestrels, because it's known that barn owl and kestrels will work quite well together. Matt actually tells the story of how with one of these boxes, the barn owls had young, and there was a kestrel actually nesting with young on the frontier.
Oh, right, okay.
And they were quite happy together.
Right.
But the beauty, if you have the two together, is that the kestrels tend to keep jackdaws out of the way during the day. And you know, obviously, although they both hunt voles, they're hunting it at different times of the day. So if there's enough food around, they work really well together.
Right. Okay. Yeah. In
actual fact, another thing with this design is that we don't get quite as much jackdaw damage, jackdaw problems as a more traditional design, because the jackdaws actually have problems getting twigs and stuff around. They will still do it. But when we started, we were using the Nigel Lewis Mark 7 design, and this opening was quite a bit bigger. And there was a big problem with jackdaws with those around here in particular. We've now got both this design and the previous design. This is the Mark 9 design, and we've actually got one place with a large box and this slightly smaller box, one on top of the other in actual fact, and the jackdaws couldn't get twigs in the smaller box. They got one or two in and then gave up. So
good stuff. Yeah, and because I know that's often a question I often get asked with helping people with boxes, is they say, oh, we really want, we don't want jackdaws or stockdaws, but you have to take the rough with the smooth, and yeah, so that's a good way of getting around it is it's just trial and error, isn't it? Which is why it's so helpful working with people like Matt and ourselves and Major Nigel Lewis and Bob Shepherd and all those. It's these. That's the wonderful thing about these boxes, including the Swift boxes, is they work out in the field. They're not just, they don't just look nice and they're super well made out of super materials. They actually work, and that's the aim of it really, is to make sure that they do work. So before we finish, because we've done, we don't have to finish just yet. We're on an hour. I knew this was going to be a long one, because we could talk forever as two. What else? What are the plans? What are we allowed to talk about? Any? We haven't got any secret things that we can't talk about, have we? What's the future obviously Bird Fair's cancelled this year, so we're not going to be at Bird Fair, which is a massive shame.
Because we were going to do something jointly, weren't we? With quite a bit of interactive stuff. I'm just in the process of sorting out supplying cameras for people.
Yeah.
And working with a number of people. I'm trying to do a remote system that you could have in a barn owl box, run off a battery with being charged by solar and transmitting it, the signal back to your house. And yeah, we've got quite a few little things going on.
Obviously flat pack boxes. We've still got to pull a figure out with them, and
we're developing that up. There's quite a lot of interest with schools. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
And I will just mention, we have to mention that as the company develops, I suppose you're going to develop new ideas and new ranges, or develop different things. So like with the flat pack boxes, you have done tit boxes for blue tits and great tits and so other species, but it's worth mentioning, I suppose, people can get in touch with you. I think probably the one thing you enjoy most is when someone gets in touch with you with a challenge. So you've done a peregrine box, you've just done me this swallow thing that I've got to put up on Monday to test.
Yeah, well, I having been in bespoke work all my life, it's quite nice to actually do one-offs, and I'm more than happy to do that. So yeah, there's all different things going on. If people want anything special and they get in contact with me, I can try to help.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've helped me loads. As I say, I only mentioned the swallow thing to you the other day, and you've sent this great. I after I got off the phone to you, I thought, how is this going to work? But actually, I think it might work. It looks really good what you've. So we'll test it out and see whether my swallows take to it. And
it's just trying to recreate, what you think birds like, and a lot of that is just observations and things. And talking to experts, it makes a huge difference. That get working, and that's the ultimate thing. So and then we've got some other. I don't know. We've got some other things up past. Well, we're working on or talking about, which we won't say too much. But I think cameras. I get asked a lot by people about cameras. So, and especially it's the time of year people want to be able to see. Before I came on air, I said to you, didn't I? I was watching peregrines in Exeter, so to see if their chicks are hatched, and schools, working together and getting into schools. That's a really interesting thing, because if we want to make a difference, the easiest way is to actually influence the kids. They're the generation that will really make the difference.
Well, absolutely, and
your generation. You're younger than me.
I nearly said not as old cronies, like you said before. I was including me in that bracket now.
No, I don't include you. You're much too young for that.
Yeah, someone has asked a question. I'll answer it quickly. Is there a minimum height they should be mounted and direction? Well, I'll answer the raptor one. You can answer the swift one in a second. So bird of prey ones, depending on the species, obviously you need prime habitat that they use. So rough tussocky grassland for barn owls and kestrels, and I could go on about tawny owls and little owls as well individually. But height-wise, I tend to say about 10 foot, 12 foot. People think they need to be right up in the top of the tree. They don't, because if you're not going to monitor it, then that's all right. But don't forget, you need to be able to get up to the box to potentially clean it out. You've got jackdaws or a non-target species. The only time I put any boxes higher than, say, 10 or 12 foot is if they're in an area where I don't want them to be got at. So I put boxes up before discreetly in big parks, so I put them higher just in case someone's, you know, you don't want, you know, spot them and get to them. So, but other than that, 10, 12 foot, you know, I put little owl boxes in apple trees that are, you know, only 7, 8 foot high, and they've been taken straight away. So, yeah, but Leicester sends all that information out, and if you buy a box through Raptor Aid, we send all that information out for you anyway. Direction-wise, just basically out the weather. As long as you haven't got the driving weather coming into them, then yeah, and you'll know.
Yeah, particularly tawny owl and kestrel boxes. The barn owl boxes aren't quite so weather dependent, are they? Because of the tunnel in them, it does help a bit.
Yeah, but
it's always best to.
Yeah, people often say to me, "Oh, you know, you see online about, you know, the directions to face them in," and I just say, "Well, yeah, look at the prevailing weather based on your landscape and assess it based on that, really." But yeah, swifts. Go on, touch on swifts, Leicester.
Swifts, the higher you get them, the better. But there has been success as low as 2 meters. But we normally say 3 to 4 meters minimum, really. The crucial thing with swifts is a flight path in and out. The young at 6 weeks literally drop out of the box and fly off to Africa on their own, which still to me seems unbelievable how they know how to do that.
Yeah.
But they tend to drop a couple of meters before they fly off. So if you haven't got that drop, they'll hit the ground. And if they hit the ground, they can't take off again.
Yeah.
Even adult swifts can't. They're in flight all their life, and there's a good reason for it, because they basically haven't got any legs.
Yeah, so they need good clearance to drop out the box. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good, excellent. Right, okay. Well, I think that's it.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Just in case, if anybody does buy boxes off us through hearing about this here, if they mention it to me, I'll give 10% to Raptor Aid. So,
thank you very much. You don't need to do. You do enough for Raptor Aid already. But yeah, I appreciate that, Leicester. Brilliant. All right. Well, well, hopefully, we will get a few people who watch this. I'll make sure I put the website for peak boxes up on this after we've finished. But
also if people are buying the Raptor boxes, they can buy Raptor Aid ones, which means you instantly get money out of it. So,
whichever. I don't mind. You know me. I don't mind sharing it with Pete. This was all about peak boxes tonight, but equally, if anyone wants any more information, I'll put Leicester's. You don't mind me sharing your email, do you, Leicester? I'll put your email up, and I'll put my email up, because we're both pretty likable guys, and we're more than happy to chat to people if they want advice on nest boxes, or they've got ideas, especially if you're a school teacher and you want to develop something once this crazy virus has disappeared. Then we are
setting up a pack, aren't we, for schools, which will be interesting when we get that sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, we'll let everyone go and have their tea. All right, everyone. I'm trying to think. I think this coming week, and potentially I've got Dr. Gareth Tate from the Endangered Wildlife Trust coming. He runs the Bird of Prey programme for them. So hopefully I've got him on at some point this week, and I've got a couple of other people who haven't confirmed. So I'll announce that when it's all set up. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Cheers, Leicester. Thank you very much. See you soon.